Welcome to another edition of Southern Hang Podcast. Guys, when we got together and we started thinking about this podcast, we had a couple of different ideas that we wanted to bring, and we had kind of visions of people that we'd want to talk to. We talked about musicians. We talked about entrepreneurs. We talked about sports figures. But I don't think we ever thought that maybe we would get an Olympian. And not only that, I don't think we thought we would get a captain of a U.S. national team in the Olympics. Tonight, we have a Kentuckian who is joining us, who was the team captain for the U.S. national team of the 1972 Olympics. We have Kenny Davis with us. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I look forward to visiting with each of you.
We're pretty excited, man. This is an honor. It's a real honor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Davis, for coming on.
Absolutely. Shout out to a friend of mine, Shannon McCracken, who made the introduction to Mr. Davis here, to Kenny, and very excited for this. This is one, Mr. Davis, the four of us, to give you a little background here, the four of us, Neil Wilding's not with us today, but Craig Cotton, Brian Redmond, and myself, Sherman Brown, four friends from college who hung out, and then we all went our separate ways, did our own thing. We stayed in touch, but we started getting together once a year for a baseball trip, and it has turned into now, after 15 years of baseball trips, we decided we should do this a little more often. So what better way to do it than to get together for a podcast and kind of commemorate all this. And this is truly an honor to be able to be here with you, so thank you. Let's start, I guess, for the first part here is tell us a little bit about yourself of growing up. We talked a little bit before we started the show here, but Monticello, and kind of tell us a little bit about, just kind of where you come from.
Grew up in Monticello and went to Wayne County High School to play basketball. Our coach there was Ray Mills, who played University of Kentucky. So to have him as my coach and the background that he had at UK was something that kind of interested me at that particular time. So I decided to give it a try and played for him as much as I possibly could. One of the things that got me also interested in basketball was Monticello was runner-up in the state tournament in 1961. And after that Saturday night game, they came back home on a fire truck, and all the fans were out there, including me, watching that. And I decided then that if this is going to be something that many people wanted to be a part of, then maybe I wanted to be a part of it as well. So I went to the Western Auto the next day and bought a basketball and kind of started playing from that point on, and ended up going to, obviously, Georgetown, which is a perfect place for me to play.
So you're growing up, you said you bought a basketball. Are you, at that point, is there a goal nearby, or are you just working on dribbling and passing and that's all you're doing? Tell me what's around you, if you're not, just kind of, what's that like for you?
When I first started, there was not a goal there. We put one up on the side of a barn, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. And it was close to a briar patch. Thorns were close by too. So I learned very quickly that you didn't want to dribble it very much because obviously it could get damaged. So if you shot it, then it was a little bit easier not to damage it as much trying to dribble it. So I guess that's where I developed my shot more so than probably my dribbling ability.
Shooting and passing become the keys there, right?
Shooting and passing became the key, absolutely.
So what grade was that you started, Mr. Davis, that you picked up started playing ball? Fifth grade. All right. Well, you learned real fast, because if my notes read right, you have high school scoring title, correct? And you had some pretty high numbers you put up during your time. And
my senior year, I led the state in scoring. I scored an average of 32 per game. And also, I had the highest score in a game. I had 61 one night. So if it don't go up, it don't go in. So I figured it out pretty early.
That's pre 3-point line?
No, there was no 3-point line even when I played in college. So it was just strictly a 2-point line.
No shot clock, no 3-point line, just
no shot clock, no 3-point line. It was just the regular high school game at that particular time, which was in 1966 when I graduated from high school.
What was y'all's best record, or what was your farthest y'all went during your time in high school?
Interesting. My first 3 years in high school, there were 16 teams in our district, so it was almost impossible to come out of the district to get to go to the region. My senior year, they put us into a 5-team district, and we won that one for the first time since 1940. Wayne County had won the district tournament, so we were excited about that, and went to Boyle County to play in the region. And Dickie Parsons, the head coach at Boyle County at the time, who later was assistant coach for Joe Hall at Kentucky, they beat us in the first round.
So times were a little different back then, for sure. We didn't have the internet, right? You didn't have TBS to see ball games every night of the week, or college basketball wasn't Super Tuesday. Did you have the ability to kind of model your game after somebody, or how did you determine how you wanted to play, or was it like you said, if it's not going up, it's not going in?
It's interesting. Georgetown College coach by the name of Bob Davis, who was no relation to me, he started the first basketball camp in the state of Kentucky. And at the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I went there to that camp and was introduced by some of his former players who were there demonstrating how to shoot. And in particular, Cecil Tuttle was one of them. And I learned how to shoot from him, and then went back home and did everything I possibly could to imitate him. And I think that was one of the reasons that it became a decent way for me to shoot the basketball. I don't think I would have been a basketball player as well as I was if I had not gone to that camp. I got decent as a player in Monticello and Wayne County, but then when I went to camp, I realized that there were a lot of other players who were as good or much better than me. So from that standpoint, I realized that if I was going to get better, I had to work as hard as I possibly could. So that camp was a big stimulus to me getting better as a basketball player.
I guess that's just the more time that you're putting in, you're seeing it. Obviously, you're at a camp, you're around the other athletes, and the other, the level is up, right? So to your point of if you don't put it up, and the defense gets better, everything about that experience was probably.
Everything was better at that camp. If I'd have stayed in Monticello, I would have thought I was a decent player. When I got there was a lot of decent players. So I knew, again, if I was going to get any better, then I was going to have to work at it. And that camp inspired me to go back home and do as much as I possibly could to become a better player, including learning how to shoot the basketball correctly. They talk about practice makes perfect. Well, that's not exactly true. It takes correct practice to make perfect, and I figured that out pretty quickly as far as learning how to shoot.
And then was it the same then, as you say, as we are today? Did the Georgetown coach start recruiting you? Was there a recruiting process back then, and then that's how you got to Georgetown? Was it how did that work to go from Monticello to Georgetown? How did that connection happen? Was it the camp that got you there?
Well, it's interesting. There was a player from Wayne County that went to Western Kentucky and played for Coach Diddle at Western, and he ended up being assistant coach at Western. So he recruited me highly to come to Western, and I did that. I got there, and a couple of things didn't work out that they had promised me, and so I decided to go to Georgetown and play a semester there, and then I was going to transfer to the Air Force Academy, which is where I really was wanting to go after I left Western, but I got to Georgetown, and to be honest with you, it was a perfect place for me to play. The coach stressed as the way he wanted to coach, it was a guard offense, and I could not have gone to a better place. My coach there, in addition to enjoying coaching, he was into politics as well. So he was really high up in the NAIA basketball organization, which made it possible for me to get to my exposure to some of those national teams. And I was able to play on some of those, which kind of was a stepping stone to go all the way to the Olympics. I was the only player that ever played in the World University Games, the Pan American Games, and the Olympics as far as a USA basketball player. And it primarily was because of my coach, who was high up in the organization that got me on some of those teams.
So let's talk about that. So you are in college, you're playing, everything's, normal college. I want to say normal college career. None of us played college ball, but your career is going. Your path is clearly you're playing ball. Who approaches you? How does that even come up? That the Pan Am Games or the Olympics? Where does that come from for you at that time?
At the end of my sophomore year, there was a State Department group of players that were going overseas to play different organizations over there. And the coach was the friend of my coach at Georgetown. So he was allowed me to be a part of that particular team. There wasn't a tryout for that, so I was able to just go and be a part of it. And we were over there for 6 weeks playing in probably 20 different countries. We play one country one night and go to another country another night. So that got me started with a background on playing in the international games, which the rules are a little bit different than it is in American games. So then I came back home and then played my junior year. And then between my junior and senior years, World University Games were tryouts, so I went there and made that team. And then the next year was between my junior and senior year, and the Pan American Games was a tryout as well. So I was able to make those teams from tryouts.
What an amazing story of coming from Monticello. Now you're in 20 countries, playing in 20 different countries, and you're what age are we talking? 19, 20? Are you?
19.
Wow, how cool
19.
is that? That is amazing. That is great.
Talk to me. What was your game, right? So if I'm looking at your stat sheet, it's got you listed at 5'11", 181. So were you quick first step? Were you a catch and shoot?
Well, the offense that we used at Georgetown College was a lot of picks and rolls. And so he would get the centers and forwards to pick for the guards. And I was able to come off of screens and shoot the ball that way. And I learned pretty quickly that you got to get it up without much hesitation. And I was able to do that. But the coach, 90% of what he did at Georgetown was for the guards' offense. And looking back on it, I couldn't have gone to a better place to play to be able to do what I did there because of the way he set things up for his guards. Coach felt like that at Georgetown that he could not get maybe the good big players, the good centers, but he felt like that there were enough good guards in Kentucky. So he decided to put his whole offense around the guard perimeters. And that's one of the reasons that I was able to score like I did, because he made sure that his guards, especially me, got the ball a lot of times during the games.
And the same as the question that I asked about your high school, didn't you put up some pretty good numbers at Georgetown too? Didn't you have a record as a ball player at Georgetown? Aren't you the only player to have a high school and college single season scoring record? Isn't that correct?
Yes, in high school, my senior year, I led the state in scoring by 32 points. And my sophomore year at Georgetown, I averaged 28, which led the state in scoring. My junior year, Dan Issel beat me out as a leading scorer. I was second. But then Dan graduated in my senior year. I averaged 32 a game and was also the leading scorer. So 2 out of the 4 years I played at college, I led the state of Kentucky in college scoring.
That's pretty.
Well, who was that? Who was that guy? I don't remember that guy. I've never heard that name before. I don't know that Dan Issel.
Dan put up a lot of points himself. And,
yeah, he did.
Obviously, he could play. Played with, of course, Mike Pratt and Mike Casey and those guys.
So now we're you've played Pan American games, and now you how do you get over onto the Olympics now? How did you get onto that team?
There was an invitation that was listed to the players who were invited to the Olympic trials. They brought 67 of us out to Colorado Springs in Colorado to try out for the team. We practiced with each other for a week, and then at the end of that week, we played a series of 8 exhibition games. And at the conclusion of those exhibition games, a committee of 48 people picked 12 of us to go to Munich to play on the Olympic team.
And at that time, it was strictly college players. It was not allowed
Yes.
to have professional players. So
everybody was an amateur that played on that
Yes,
particular team. Yes.
So for those of us who have never had any experience like this, and for our listeners listening in, Kenny,
that's all of us.
That's everybody that's listening to this thing. You're in Colorado Springs. You're there. You've already traveled the world. You've already been to 20 countries. You're pretty comfortable, I would assume, being away from home after all of this and being away from Kentucky. But the other folks that are there, are you building relationships, and who have you maybe even stayed in contact with even longer than that, whether they made the team, didn't make the team? Who are some of the people that you were with out there?
Fortunately, Mike Casey, who I knew all along, because Casey and I graduated the same year in 1966, and I became friends with him. Those University of Kentucky players kind of like to get out of Lexington every now and then, and they'd come to Georgetown to kind of do maybe other things other than basketball.
Good restaurants. They found good restaurants.
I became good friends with those guys, especially Mike. And then, of course, Mike tried out for that Olympic team as well. And he was an alternate that made it as one of the alternates. But Casey had that automobile wreck, and obviously that slowed him down considerably. If he had been the player he was before that automobile wreck, he might have taken my spot instead of the one that I was able to make.
Gotcha. So when we're talking about this timing, this is the Vietnam War era. This is there's politics going on with the Cold War, and you're going into the Olympics. You're chosen. You're one of the 12. How do you first of all, how do you learn that you're one of the 12 when they choose those 12, that group of 48 choose the team members? How do you learn that?
The final basketball game that we played, they informed all of us that the next morning they would place on a board the 12 players that made the team. And so not a lot of sleep that night, obviously. And I was fortunate when I got the next morning and saw my name on that board. And it's a little bit probably that was going in my favor. I had played in the most international games of any of the invitees at that camp, so that helped me some. And then looking at the stats, I had a decent stat as well. So looking back on it, I think they were honest in picking the 12. I had a good 2 weeks, which was fortunate for me. If it had been maybe some other time, that I wouldn't maybe have played as well. But I played decently well in those 2 weeks, and I was fortunate to make the team.
So after that selection comes out, how fast was that turnaround? Was it that y'all, okay, pack your bags, we're headed off to Munich? How quick are y'all leaving?
Well, that was the end of June, and the Olympics didn't start till late August, early September. So what happened next was the most difficult part. Coach Henry Iva from Oklahoma State took us to Hawaii to practice for the Olympics. We were there 26 days in Hawaii, and we never, ever got a day off during that 26 days. Oh. And most of those times we were practicing 3 hours a day, 3 times a day, 2 hours each.
Just the 12 of y'all?
Just the 12 of us. And the reason he took us there was because he wanted us to get away from everything that was happening here. And also there were some armed forces teams out there that we could play against. So that was one of the reasons that he did that. But you'll talk to any of my teammates and they'll tell you that was probably one of the most difficult 26 days that they'd ever experienced. Coach Iba had coached in the 68 and 64 Olympics, and he certainly knew what we were going to be faced with, especially that Russian team, and he wanted to do everything he possibly could do to make sure that we were in top shape and were fortunate enough to get over there in a position to certainly play as well as we possibly
I'm
could.
glad you explained that. I thought that was like, well, why would you pick Hawaii? That just seemed like like an odd location, but that makes sense. Get away from all the drama going on in the States at the time and kind of get away. So that's that.
Yeah, Coach Alba didn't
Oh,
want
wow.
any distractions, and by taking us over there wasn't any, to be
Sure.
honest with you. We
Was that
after
a
6 hours a day of practice, most of the time went straight back to the dormitory and to bed.
yeah?
And
That's
sleep.
actually was that a college? Was that a military campus? What kind of property were you on?
We were on the Pearl Harbor military
Wow.
base. Yeah, Pearl Harbor military base. Interesting. My roommate was Tom McMillan from Maryland, and Tom was studying to be a Rhodes Scholar, and he literally brought one suitcase of clothes and 2 of books. It was absolutely amazing. I don't think I could read some of the titles of those books that he had.
That is
that's
awesome.
great.
That's awesome. So, you the turnaround then after those 26 days, you head actually over to the Olympics. Explain that. You had played in these other Pan Am games and the other international games, but to be an Olympian and to be at the Olympics, walk us through just arriving in the village. You know what I mean? Just of what's that look like? And was it a village? I'm taking it for granted that there was, that was kind of set up like that. But what was that experience like of just getting there and seeing the other, the other Olympians and other sports, and just talk to us a little bit about that experience.
Munich had built the barracks that we stayed in brand new. They were condominiums that they had already sold after we left back home, again, came back home from the Olympics. So it was a beautiful place as far as that was concerned. And then the opening ceremonies was, I believe, weather-wise, the most beautiful time that we had there. And what they did as far as the Americans, they lined us up according to height. Well, for me, I was probably 2/3 of the way back. My teammates were all the way in the back. So as we started to walk into the arena, I slipped back with my teammates and walked in with them. And to this day, the feeling when we first walked in and they introduced us as USA Olympic team, there's cold chills still in the back of my neck thinking about that and talking about that. Obviously, it doesn't get any better than that. Serving in the military is the biggest thing as far as representing your country, but the second thing I think is the Olympics, and I'm not comparing the two, obviously not close, but to walk in that stadium with USA on your chest is something that was very, very special to me, and I know it was for all of my teammates.
Absolutely.
Outside of your basketball teammates, did you spend time or get to know any of the other athletes that you're buddies with, or keep up with any of those kind of folks? Or
well, I don't know if they're buddies or not,
Amazing.
but at that particular time, we all stayed in the same condominium thing with the other athletes, and we were back and forth with a lot of those players. There was a boxer at that time, Dwayne Bobick, who would go up and down the elevator with us, and he would kind of shadow box us back and forth. And then, to be honest with you, about halfway into the Olympics, he met that Cuban boxer who won 3 straight Olympics, and he wore Bobick out pretty good. So from then on out, we didn't have to worry about seeing him doing that to us. And obviously, Steve Prefontaine, the little runner, I've got pictures with him. We were talking back and forth with him quite a bit. Mark Spitz, to be honest with you, the swimmer who won 7 out of 7 gold medals. I went up and down the elevator with him several times without realizing who he was. We had heard about Mark a long time before we got to Munich, and to me, I was thinking maybe 6'4", 280 or 250, huge guy. And all of a sudden, when I walked in and somebody introduced me to him, he was like maybe 5'8" and weighed 190 pounds. So that was kind of a shock when they introduced me to Mark Spitz. That's amazing, isn't it, to win 7 out of
Yeah.
7 gold medals. I didn't think that'd ever be broken, and then of course Michael Phelps broke it in Beijing with 8 out of 8, which is also incredible.
Well, we're leading up to obviously the big gold game versus Russia, but talk to us about how many games did y'all have to play, or who did you play to get to that game? What was that experience like?
Most of those teams we played, the games were not even close. All the way up to the semifinals, which we played Cuba, and that was probably our closest game before we went into the final game of playing against the Soviet Union. At that particular time, international basketball was not that strong, to be honest with you, and Cuba and Russia and ourselves were the top 3 out of the 12 teams that had made it to to go to the games.
Okay, and then do you want to dive right into the last that game versus Russia? I think it was y'all took the lead with. I guess y'all were trailing most of that game, or you tell the story, Ed. It's your story. Or go ahead.
And let's back up a little bit. So you're going in. Do you know that at the time you're going and you're arriving in Munich, do you feel that the Soviets are your opposition? That's the team that you're going to be up against. I mean, looking back at the years before, it kind of looks that way. But is that the way you felt?
Yes, Coach Iba knew that was probably the team that we would have to beat in order to win the gold medal. And that was almost all of our focus up until that particular point. He made sure that we knew that. And it really wasn't the U.S. playing Russia. It was a basketball team playing against a basketball team. And to be honest with you, we never thought much about the Cold War or anything that was going on. What we wanted to do was make sure that we brought the gold medal back to the U.S. because the United States had never ever lost a gold medal in the Olympics at that particular time. And we certainly did not want to be the team that did that. The problem was, as far as establishing what an amateur was difficult because some teams and some countries looked at it differently than what we did. Our average age on that Olympic team was 19 years, 2 months. That Russian team that we played was 28
Wow.
years old, and they had played over 300 games together, and we'd played 10. So you can have less talent as players, but if you play that long as a team, then it means that much difference, I think, as far as what happened. But they were excellent as far as a basketball team, and bigger, stronger, and more disciplined, I think, even than we were because of all the time they played together.
Absolutely. So you're to Craig's point, you're getting into the game, you're leading up. You talked about the game with Cuba, and the games kind of beforehand. Nothing nothing stands out to you in any of those that were, close. You're going into the finals. The preparation there. Go ahead.
Yes, we knew that was who we were going to probably play in the finals. I mean, we went to a lot of their games when we weren't playing just to watch them, to scout them, and to do as much as we could as far as realizing that's probably who we were going to play. Their semifinal game wasn't very close at all either, as ours wasn't with Cuba. So we knew going in that was probably who was going to have to play. It would have been a big upset for our team or the Russian team to have gotten beaten before the gold medal game.
So you're heading in. As you're going in, what's the crowd like? As you're coming into the arena, into the Coliseum, wherever, forgive me for not knowing that. I should have looked that up. But as far as where you're playing, what is that feeling like in the gym?
Well, this is interesting as well. The United States wanted to broadcast the game live back here, which meant that the game didn't start till midnight Munich time. So we went all day long looking to that particular game. Can you imagine not starting a game till midnight? And of course, it was the same for the Russian players as well. But looking back on it, that was a long, long day to get to that point to play a game at midnight. And then all of a sudden we understand that the U.S. didn't televise it live. They televised it tape delayed later on. So they could have easily started it at a normal time, but they did not do that. But we knew it was going to be a battle. We went into it realizing it was going to be a battle. But again, we didn't think it was U.S. Versus Russia. We knew that, but we didn't think about it as far as a basketball team. Once you throw that thing up and start playing, it was against teams against teams, and that's what happened in that game as far as we were concerned. Of course, at the end of it, a little bit more was thought about as far as the Cold War was concerned. But while the game was going on, that wasn't anything that was in our minds.
So the game starts out. Is it? Do you feel it's more physical at that time than your average basketball game, or how are you feeling through that? Maybe the first half of the game.
It definitely was more physical than what we've been used to. It seemed like that the referees were letting it go, and both teams were going to have to pick it up physically in order to come out on top. And there was a couple of skirmishes. One of our guys got thrown out of the game, and it was heated.
Y'all had some big boys there. Again, just looking at the stat line, I mean, a lot of 210, 205, 6'7", 7'2", 6'9". Y'all had some big boys on that team.
We had some big boys on the team, but the 7'4" guy from North Carolina State didn't play that much. McMillan at 6'11" was the center for us, but he wasn't extremely that good of a player at that particular time. Most of what happened from our team was the guard play. Obviously, Doug Collins and Tommy Burleson and those guys that were on that team as far as that standpoint is concerned, as far as the smaller players. The leading scorer on our team was like 6'8", Dwight Jones from Houston. So we didn't play a lot of the bigger players most of the time.
And then, so y'all were trailing majority of the game, correct? And then finally took the lead late in the game. Is that correct? And
we never ever led in the game until Doug Collins made those
free throws.
Two free throws with 3 seconds to go in the game. That was the only time we were ever led.
And then I was just going to say, do you want to walk us through, the drama that took place after Doug Collins got fouled and got to the free throw, and then I think it starts on his second free throw, correct? That's when all the drama starts?
Yes, Doug intercepted a basketball and took it to the other end of the floor and he got fouled extremely hard. We were not sure if he was going to be able to get up and shoot the free throws. And Coach Iba looked at one of the assistant coaches and said, look, if he can stand, he gets to shoot it. And Doug, in my opinion, hit two of the biggest free throws ever in the history of international basketball as far as the United States was concerned. He made the first one, and it went in, and he was shooting the second one, and that went in. And after he made that second free throw, according to international rules, the referee does not have to handle the ball. If Russia does not bring it in bounds within 5 seconds, then we get the ball back. So they do bring it in bounds and get almost to the half-court line, play 2 of those 3 seconds that was remaining, and the referees realized that the Russian coach was out on the playing floor. So they had to stop the game in order to get him back onto his bench. And when they did that, there was 1 second remaining in the game. So when they started the game back up, the Russians brought the ball inbounds. With that 1 second, they threw a long pass to the other end of the floor. The horn sounded, game was over. We jumped up and down and celebrated, and were so excited that we had come from behind in that particular game and won the gold medal.
Yeah, game's over.
Well, while we were out on the floor celebrating, this person who had no authority to do so, he came out of the stands, went up to the scorer's table, and he ordered them to reset the clock back for 3 more seconds. Did not give any kind of a reason for doing that at all. And he told us that if we left the floor, then he would automatically forfeit us as far as the game was concerned. And Coach Iba said, "Look, I'm not going to lose a game that way." So they added 3 more seconds to the clock. The Russians get the ball back in again, and they threw a long pass to the other end of the floor. Game film showed that he stepped across the inbounds line when he did that, which is a violation, but was not called. On the other end, the ball was thrown short, and the Russian player looked like that he pushed 2 American players away in order to receive it. That was not called. Then the Russian player turned and shot the basketball that went in. Then the horn sounded immediately again.
Yeah.
Well, we immediately, our delegation filed a protest with the Olympic Committee, and they said that they would delay the awarding of the medals and look at that protest. And 14 hours later, a committee of 5 men, 3 of whom were from communist countries, agreed that an error had been committed, that what had happened should not have happened. But they said since it had gone that far and that much time had elapsed, they would not go and reverse it. And therefore, they're going to award the gold medal to the Russians, and they wanted us to accept the silver.
Yeah.
So when that announcement reached us, we as the 12 players got together and said unanimously that we're not going to take the silver medal. And the reason we didn't take it was that we didn't feel like that we lost the game in order to take the silver medal. So what's it been, 53 years later, every time we still get together, we continue to say that we're not going to take that silver medal.
I get it. I watched that video probably 3 or 4 times today leading up to your interview, and I can totally see why I wouldn't accept it either. So go ahead.
Well, if we'd have lost the game according to the rules, we'd have proudly stood there and accepted the silver medal, because the silver medal in the Olympics is not too bad. But to go out and play by the rules and won the gold, and then have a bunch of bureaucrats say to us, "Well, we know that, but because of our error and our mistake, we'd like to take the silver." We just felt like that was something that we could not do, and we felt like that we needed to make that stance, because hopefully somewhere in the future, maybe it wouldn't happen to some other American team or even some other team from another country. You can't change the rules like they did against us and get away with it, but obviously they did, and so far, 53 years, it hadn't been changed.
Did I read it correctly that you actually have it in your will that your wife nor your kids are able to accept at any point in time that medal?
I did put that in there. At about 20 years after that, my wife and I had not put a will together, and we decided to do that, obviously, for our children's sake. And at the end, I just asked them if they would to put that in there. 2 kids and 1 medal, and so who would get it if it was a silver, or who would get it if it was a gold? So I just decided that I would put that in my will. So I did put that in there. And to kind of put this in perspective to you, the German Olympic organization only paid $12 for that silver medal. They only paid $16 to produce the gold medal. So it really was just a symbol of the game, not what happened in the game. So I would have liked to have the gold medal, but since I don't have it, each of us as players on that team know that according to the rules, we won the gold, and if with something that we never ever get, then that's okay. Again, it's just a symbol, and sometimes we create so much goodness or so much status toward the symbol rather than what happened. And to us, we know what happened, and if we never get anything to symbolize that, that'll be okay.
Well, I was going to ask that, and that's exactly the right attitude to have with all that. Do you and your teammates still get together? Do y'all see each other, or majority of y'all still keep in contact?
That's interesting. We had never been together as a full team for 40 years after Munich, and Converse, who I was working for at the time, came to me and said, "Look, we would like to sponsor having your team together again." So we, at the 40th anniversary, all of them came to Georgetown College, where obviously I played, and we had our 40th reunion at Georgetown for about a week's time. And that particular time, all 12 of us were still alive. And looking back on it, it was a special time for us. Less than a year later, one of the players died. Dwight Jones from Houston was our Olympic scorer, leading scorer, and they had to take one of his legs off with sugar diabetes, and he died pretty soon after that. And then 2020, a second player died of COVID from Texas, El Paso, Jim Collins. So 10 of us are still alive. We were talking about maybe getting together for a 50th anniversary, but we did not. We've been nominated to go into the Naismith Hall of Fame, and we were hoping if that happens, then that would be our next reunion together. But so far, it's just been a nomination. They haven't taken us in, which, looking back on it, I'm not sure they ever will either.
When you guys get together, are we sitting around busting each other's chops, or are you guys like remembering plays like, hey, that one play in the third quarter you cut through the lane and I hit you with a bounce pass, or like what was that like for you guys to get together?
It was strictly busting chops.
I love it. Thank you.
It's as if we'd never have been apart in 40 years. Some of the funny things that happened, not in the games, but in the locker room,
who do you like to
whatever, was all we talked about for the whole time we were together. It was a special time, and looking back on it, it was a special week.
Wow.
Kenny, who do you like to bust the chops of the most? If he's listening out there, who is the person that you would like to give it to? Who is that guy?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Who is the person that you would, if you're busting chops, who's the one you would go to the most?
Oh, Kevin George. Bless his heart. He knew how to get by without practicing. Oh, I'm hurt. And he would did that 2 or 3 times. And Coach Iva would say while we were in Hawaii, Kevin, tomorrow I got to find somebody to replace you if you don't get better. Well, he was perfect the next 2 or 3 days. And then after that, he'd start going through it again. So the 26 days we were there, Kevin only practiced probably 13 or 14 of them. So we constantly got on his chops.
That's funny.
Kevin, if you're listening, you can come on and redeem yourself if you want to.
We would still get on him if we saw him.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Doug Collins is a guy I talk to more often than any of them.
Yeah.
Doug, obviously, as I said, hit 2 of the biggest free throws you could ever hit, and he won that gold medal for us. And all of us, and myself included, would think it would be a disrespect if we took that silver medal based on what Doug Collins did in order to win that gold medal.
Well, I appreciate you bringing us back, and not that I want to, I don't know, bring the mood down, but that 72 Olympics, you had the Munich massacre at the same time. Where were you at when all that was going on, and what do you remember, or what was the feeling when that was going on? Was that before, after, right during all your basketball, or were you already done? And
it was right in the middle of everything that was going on. It obviously happened at night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't know anything about it until the next morning. We got up and went fairly close to that building to go to breakfast, and saw the activity taking place, but did not know at the time what was happening. And after I'd gone on to breakfast, they had told us what was taking place. So obviously that eliminated our appetite, and we returned back to our headquarters. And then after about 4 or 5 hours later, they declared the games were suspended, and we were locked down into the Olympic Village. Nobody could get in and nobody could get out. And the remainder of the time that we were there, there was a German soldier that stayed in our room the rest of the time.
When you say you saw the activity, was that military activity, or was that the physical hostages were, and all that was going on? Or?
We couldn't see the physical hostages. We could see the terrorists. They would come to the window occasionally, flash their guns. They had their masks on so you couldn't see them. It was kind of stupid, I guess. We got fairly close to that, and they didn't push us away from it. It was just going back and forth, and then about 8 o'clock that night, we saw the helicopter fly in, and they put the athletes and the tourists on that helicopter, and then we saw it leave and assumed that everything was going to be okay. Breathed a sigh of relief and went to sleep that night, and then, of course, when we got up the next morning, they told us that they'd had that shootout at the airport, and they'd killed all of the 9 Israeli athletes.
Yeah, that's.
I got a picture of that helicopter that they flew to that airport. They were promising the terrorists that they would give them an airplane for safe passage out of the country if they released the hostages. And so when the helicopter landed, those terrorists went to that helicopter, to that airplane to inspect it. And while they were going toward that, that's when the German sharpshooters shot at them, and they missed some of them. And they came back to that helicopter where those athletes were sitting there, huddled together with their hands and feet completely restrained. And they took that hand grenade, and threw it in there and blew it up. So I got a Time magazine with that top blowing off of that helicopter.
Yeah, and then that obviously puts you in perspective when you think about the ball game and it was right. It was an injustice, but not anything to you got to live your life, and this was a ball game. It was
that put everything in perspective for us. We came back home, had families, had careers, and lived a long life. And those kids were our age, 18, 19 years old, and got blown up in that helicopter. No, you can't compare the two. And each and every time that I think I don't have any gold medal, I immediately realize what happened to them, and it puts everything in perspective for me.
Well, you referenced having a career.
Hey, I was just going to. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd love to get into some of the details on it here. So how did you get involved with Converse?
It's interesting. After I got back from Munich, there was a gentleman named Joe Dean, String Music Joe Dean, was the hiring person at Converse, and he extended me an opportunity to become a member of the Converse basketball staff. And I was fortunate enough to work for them for 40 years and 5 months. Not many jobs would pay you to go to the Olympics. Not many jobs would pay you to go to a Super Bowl. Not many jobs would pay you to go to the NCAA tournament or tennis matches or whatever. And Converse did that for me. And looking back on it, I was as fortunate as I possibly could be to be able to work for them for 40 years and 5 months.
That's incredible. So when you started, was it the canvas Chucks, the old Chuck Taylors, or was there some, was that the inception of Converse, or was there something, we're
that was the main shoe that we had in 1972. In fact, our Olympic team wore that shoe as well, and professional athletes were wearing it also as well. When I started with Converse, we would visit some of the Cincinnati Royals teams, Cleveland Cavaliers teams, and we'd put our old Chuck Taylors on a lot of those players at that particular time. Adidas was starting to come on as well, and in the end, so some of the players were wearing Adidas. Nike didn't start till 1972, so it was probably 7 or 8 years later that they picked up some of the teams and players that we had before that all started with the losing of the Chuck Taylors to the Nike and Adidas people.
Right. So what was your role with Converse then? Was it finding players?
About half of the time I was doing promotion for them, which meant that I would go to colleges and try to get the coach to wear our particular shoe. And then I would go to pro athletes on those teams and try to get them to wear a shoe. Then the other half of the time I had a sales territory that I sold to Chuck Taylors.
Oh, okay.
And then the camps in the summer, I'd go to basketball camps and put on demonstrations and things at the camps during the summer years.
Were you going head to head with Sonny Vaccaro back then? Were y'all running in the same circles and trying to get the sales?
Absolutely amazing when you mention that name. Sonny Vaccaro came to Georgetown College at the end of my senior year and signed me as my agent.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think I was one of maybe his first 1 or 2 agents that he signed. didn't do anything for me because I didn't get any money playing pro ball. But he came to Georgetown and signed me as an agent.
It's interesting, and I'm sure. Have you seen the movie? I can't even think of it. Is it Air?
Yeah.
With it kind of story about Michael Jordan, but kind of going back to the way you referenced getting college teams to wear the shoe. It used to be every player on the team wore the same shoe in college, and then you had Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, right? The Converse weapons. I think I had the weapons back in 7th grade, maybe. But it was a different time, right? And I just read an article I think this week. Magic Johnson had the opportunity to take shares. It said he didn't understand the concept of it, so he stayed with Converse at the time.
Yeah, we had Larry and Magic and
Bernard King.
We had almost all of the top players that particular time under contract to wear the Converse shoe. And then you mentioned the colleges. If the University of Kentucky, for example, was wearing our Converse shoes, and the dealers in that area would stock that shoe and sell a lot of them. But it's almost changed now. You look at Kentucky's team; they're all Nike wearing, but they're probably 7 or 8 different models. So it's not as promotional wise as it was at that particular time.
That's wild. Yeah. So you were key and all that stuff with Larry and Magic, and you were hanging out with all those fellas back in the day, huh? When they were.
Yeah, we would bring them to sporting goods stores and do promotions with them. For example, Allied Sporting Goods, you're probably not familiar with them.
No, we are,
7 or 8, 10 or 12 stores in Louisville area. So we bring those athletes in there, and they would do promotions for us. They were under contract to do certain promotions and sign autographs and things like that. So, I was with those guys a lot. I was on an airplane once with just Larry Bird and I going from Lexington to Evansville to do a promotion for Allied. And I kind of kidded him and said, Larry, if something happens to this pilot, we're in trouble. And he looked at me and he said, Kenny, if he keels over, he said, don't wake me up. And he slept the whole time going from Lexington to Evansville.
That's funny.
I don't know how you stay there 40 years. I mean, everything you said sounds terrible. Hanging out with Magic, Larry, taking private jets, going to the Super Bowl, NCAA. I mean, it sounds like a terrible gig.
I was fortunate. I'll be honest with you. Nobody out there, I think, had any better job than I've had with the 40 years at Converse. It was special. They paid me pretty well, let me live where I wanted to live, which was Kentucky, and so I could not have asked for anything better.
Mr. Davis, I meant to ask before we moved from Olympics into your career with Converse, but after that, the Olympic game, did you keep playing, or what was the transition from basketball to Converse?
Yeah, when I came back home, there was a team here, AAU team in Kentucky called Marathon Oil. They started out as Jerry's team, but it ended up Marathon Oil. And I played 10 years for them playing AAU basketball. In fact, we won the national tournament in 1973 as the Marathon team. So it was a lot of fun doing that. We didn't have to practice very much, and we played games. So I enjoyed that part of it as well. So it ended up when I was working with Converse, I could come back home on the weekends and play with Marathon Oil on some AAU games, and I enjoyed it.
So you were working Converse and getting to still play ball at the same time, and
yes,
okay.
Yes.
And
exactly.
was that a paid team, or was that like a?
No, they paid all our expenses, but we didn't get any money for it. It was just a playing team. AAU is a lot different then than it is.
Yeah, I know what AAU means now, but I don't know what that meant back then. So. Yeah,
it was a lot different back then than it is.
Okay,
now.
And the teams, the players you were playing against in that league, were they all ex-college ball players, or? Yeah.
Yes. So we had about a 10-team league that we played against, and a lot of times we'd play the exhibition game before the ABA games, especially the Kentucky Colonels and the Indianapolis team up in Indiana. Yeah, we had some battles with those teams, and all the teams were former players. A lot of our team's members were from the University of Kentucky, and the manager of the team was Scotty Basler, who played at Kentucky and was a congressman, a mayor in Lexington, and he kind of put the team together, and it worked out well. We had a good team, and we enjoyed playing.
Go ahead, Sherman. Well, I was going to ask you what's the today's
no
what's today's you're not in Converse and are there grandchildren, you're still playing ball, you shooting, you what's dated what
no basketball. I have a grandson and a granddaughter, and they live close to us here, so I see them quite often. I have stayed pretty active. I played tennis for 50 years after I got back from Munich. I've ridden a bicycle almost 100,000 miles in the last 20 years. And then I play pickleball 3 to 4 times a week now. So I try to stay pretty active.
Craig, you got any questions about pickleball? You got nothing for him on? You don't want to jump in?
No, we're leaving. That subject's been brought up enough on this show. It's a lot of fun. I play pickleball. I enjoy the sport a lot, but
I never thought I'd like it more than tennis, but I actually do.
It is a fun sport. I'm a big fan.
If you get to Louisville, we'll sponsor a game against you and Craig, and we'll televise it.
I'm losing that match.
We can do that old school, and then we'll do that tape delay. We'll make sure everybody gets to see it. That way, we'll tell everybody it's live.
That's right.
We'll do it 4 hours later and build up a crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Live at midnight. Yeah.
It's really growing. There's a lot of competition in this area, which is good. I enjoy it.
We were talking a little bit before we went on the recording, but you're currently in the Berea area, correct? Yeah,
yes. We live about 5 miles from Berea.
Beautiful country.
My wife and I have a cattle farm. We got about 175 acres, and right now I've got 150 head of cattle on it. So,
wow.
I have help, but they need some help from me occasionally as well. So it works
Are you
out
selling that cattle to somebody? Is that what you do that for? Is that?
Yeah, we buy cattle in the spring and then sell them in the fall. We buy cattle around 400 pounds and try to get them up to 800 pounds late in the fall season and sell them at that weight.
Okay. Is that a Davis Farms or a brand or?
Well, no, I mean, we call it Davis Farms, but it's just we have 175 acres.
Oh, how beautiful.
We've had cattle on it forever. The terrain here is such that you almost need cattle rather than to grow crops of corn or soybeans. It's kind of rolling hills, so it's all pasture land, so you need cattle on it.
Well, Mr. Davis, in other episodes, we've been able to ask our guests if there was a song that you want to add to our playlist. We have a playlist that we share on all music streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify. And we're curious if you have a song that you'd like to add that is just, heartfelt to you or remind you of that time or any time during your career or specific to the Olympics. And would you be cool if we add that to our playlist?
We were leaving the locker room, getting ready to play that game against Russia, and the song that we heard the most that came up was "What Becomes of a Broken Hearted." And that was kind of apropos, I guess, as to what happened to us in that particular game. So I think of that song often, and when we were together on that 40th anniversary, we brought that up quite often as well.
One of the coolest episodes we've ever had. This was so cool listening to get to hear your story. What a cool life. Is there a book? Do you have anybody writing a story? I mean, because it should be on paper somewhere.
There's a book that was written about it. It's called Better Than Gold, and you can go on Amazon and probably find it. The title of it is Better Than Gold.
That'll be my next read.
Shannon she's probably got 2 or 3 copies she can get to you.
Well, Mr. Davis, thank you. We could not ask for a cooler episode. This was killer. I appreciate you coming on the show. I know when I speak for all of us that got to be here and Neil that missed on this episode, and I know he's going to be upset that he missed out. But, man, what an amazing story. What a fun time to listen to you, and love getting to spend some time with you. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Go to visit with you guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.